What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Eclectic Collector channel. I feel like we're getting back on track. I was kind of dropping a video every couple of weeks for a little bit there, for a minute there, but I think hopefully, if all goes well, for like the next 3 or 4 videos, or at least like the next 2 or 3 videos, I should kind of be on a weekly basis. But I got one coming that's going to be about uh, Akira Toriyama, and that's going to be a big video. So that one is going to set me back a little bit because I need some time to read some of his series, and once I get that whole thing going, I'm probably gonna take a couple of weeks off from uploading videos while I kind of set up everything and get some reading done, because I really want to just hyper focus on that and not do anything else. So in the meantime, I want to try to get a handful of videos out, and this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. This should have been out mid March, but like everything that like essentially could go wrong, that could set me back, did set me back. I got sick, so there was like a week where I didn't do anything, and then I finally was able to get out my initial D video, which actually dropped today. As of the making of this video, today is the Friday on which I dropped my initial D video. And I was supposed to do this as a currently reading spring video, but I don't even know if I can do that anymore because it's like the end of April. By the time this video comes out, it's gonna be like the end of April. So I haven't decided yet. This is either gonna be like late spring currently reading, or it's just gonna be 5 volumes of manga that I read recently. I'm not sure on the title yet. I guess we'll know what I chose when the video comes out. I got 5 volumes of manga here that, for the most part, I enjoyed every one of them. There's only one that I kind of wasn't in love with, but for the most part, everything else I did really like. And I wrote some words down just to make it a little bit easier to kind of get everything out and to make it be a little more informative, than me just kind of rambling. So, all right, so here are 5 volumes of manga that we're going to be doing for this currently reading. I've been reading. I read Once Upon a Time, whatever, video. So here they are. I hope that you are all as excited as I am to get this thing on the road. All right, so right off the bat, we've got a series called Gachi Akuta, and this thing was an absolute blast to read. I love this character right here. His name is Rudo, and he is basically a dude who goes like dumpster diving. And if you've ever heard the saying, like one man's trash is another man's treasure, well, that's this dude incarnate right here. I really like this character a lot. He wears these gloves because there's something wrong with his hands, and he is there. So let's set up the world. There is this world, and I'd mentioned this in one of my haul videos or whatever, and I said I was going to be doing a video about it, and or at least including it in one of these videos. And I knew going into it, before I even started reading it, that it was about these people that lived, like, I guess in the sky or something, and that's his origin. There are, I guess, like, there's like rich people, and then there are like poor people that exist within this universe, and the poor people are like tribes people, and then the rich people are just horrible are just horrible jerks, you know what I mean? Like, they are awful. They have no appreciation for anything. They take everything for granted. If something is slightly, damaged or whatever, they throw it away. And I've known people like this, you know what I mean? I worked, at one point in time in my life, I worked at a place where, like, I dealt with, like, a lot of rich people. And they're not all, the same. They're not all like that. But I did, meet those people that were, super superficial, and that, were like that. And it kind of gave me that, it gave me, like, PTSD. It kind of took me back to when I worked at that place. And this dude is a part of like the tribes people, and he goes dumpster diving, and he rescues like a bunny that this like rich girl, like little rich girl, threw away, and he kind of like sews it back together or whatever, and he gives it to this girl that he really likes. And it kind of sets up, where like he is going to be like this really sweet kid, who just wants to, make his friends and make the people around him happy. Only he really doesn't have friends other than like this one girl who, who's kind to him, and then his, like, I guess if you will, kind of like adoptive sort of a father. His dad was accused of murder, and in this universe, if you are accused of murder, they like will string you up on the edge of this like floating city or whatever like that they live on. And for the most part, it's like the tribes folk, the poor folk that are, that are murdered or whatever, that are killed, for being murderers or whatever. They're framed in some instances, like what happens to this kid later on in the story. They're framed. And usually, like, these currently reading videos, when I do these, I'll read like halfway through a series, and then, I'll give you my thoughts about it. Just as an example, like this one right here, this is the next one I'm going to be talking about, has a bookmark in the middle. As you can see, Gacha Yakuta does not have a bookmark in the middle. And I forgot to mention the creator's name, and this is something that I'm trying to get better about doing, that I always forget to do this. But this is written by Kei Urana, and the graffiti design, I guess, is by a person named Hideyoshi Ando. But yeah, so this dude is later on, essentially framed for murder, and I just could not put this thing down. Like, I'm usually like pretty good about, like, when I say I'm gonna do like for a video, I'm gonna read halfway through or whatever. I couldn't do that with Gacha Yakuta because I just could not, put it down. Once I picked it up, I was just like, I need to know everything. Once I picked it up, I was like, I need to know everything. So this story, this dude is pretty much, being raised by this dude who is like his surrogate, who is like his surrogate father. And obviously, you already know, given the premise and given the way that this world sees, the tribesfolk and the way they treat them and whatnot, that things are going to go terribly. You can kind of see that from the onset. As soon as you open his volume and you start reading it, you're like, something's going to happen to this kid. Something terrible is going to happen to him. And, yeah, pretty much in this world, like, if you are convicted of murder or whatever, like, they hang you on the edge of this floating world, this floating city, and you are dropped to the, I guess, like, ground below or whatever, and they don't know, what's going on down there. They just know that you're pretty much just dropped off the edge, and that's it. So he ends up being framed for a murder that he did not commit, and everybody turns against him. Even the girl that, he really liked, that he gave the bunny to, she turns against him, and he falls to this, like, lower world or whatever, and it turns out that there are people, that live down there, and that they've been, living down there. And ending up in this world, he ends up, falling onto like this huge, like, pile of trash, and from there he ends up meeting these different characters that exist in the world, below. And I won't go too far into that, just because I don't want to like spoil too much of this thing for you. I'm just trying to set up, the world and the events and whatnot, but I'm not gonna give you like everything. One thing I do want to talk about is the power structure within this manga, because it is one of those mangas that has a sort of like a power system. And in this, there are people called givers, and our dude right here, Rudo, is a giver, and it is like a sort of, situation in which this dude, as this thing called a giver, things, I guess, over time, if somebody cares enough about them, or like, like, if somebody cares about a thing, it is imbued with a sort of life. And in the case of Gacha Yakuta, there's different objects that, come to have a sense of life, and in this world that is called anima. And if a thing becomes imbued with anima, it becomes alive in a sense, and there are these things called trash beasts, which are literal beasts made of trash. I'm sorry if like my voice sounds kind of weird. Like, I'm trying to get certain words out and it's hard to enunciate because I'm wearing Invisalign, and it makes it really difficult for me to talk. Yeah, there are these things called trash beasts, and they are made of trash, and they've gained a sort of sentience, because of this anima. After time, things kind of, come to life. And as givers, they can give objects, I guess, anima. And when they give those objects anima, they become vital instruments. And a giver can use vital instruments to, like fight trash beasts, or to like just fight other people that are trying to hurt them or whatever. And that's the thing with Rudo, or like he does, he does kind of end up being able to like possess, these different things, and make vital instruments to defend himself. And I loved this first volume, dude. As you are aware now that like I've read the whole thing, I couldn't put it down. I want to praise this thing because I love the artwork. There's times like really early on, like there's parts of this that really made me think of Limp Bizkit. Like if you've seen the artwork for their first album, I can't remember what the hell it was called, like Strange Other or something, whatever that album was called. I'll put it somewhere on here. But like if you look at that album artwork, that's what it reminded me of. Or even just like early 2000s, like Headbangers Ball artwork, or mid to early to mid 2000s, like Headbangers Ball artwork kind of had like the scratchy lines or whatever. And that's what this made me think of. This made me think of like edgy like 2000s artwork. And when you pick this up, if you haven't already, or if you've read it, you'll kind of I think you'll kind of see that like there's like this really edgy sort of like 2000s artwork kind of going on. But I love it, given that I am a product of that era. I was a teenager during like the MySpace era, so like I grew up with all that stuff, and that made me love it even more. Like the artwork reminded me so much of that, that era. And I think that might be on purpose. I think that is a callback to it. I don't know 100%, if that's the case or not. But I loved it, dude. It reminded me of things like, because given there's like the whole class structure within this series, it reminded me of like Battle Angel Alita. It reminded me of like of Elysium. It reminded me of, there was another one. It also reminded me of Parasite, the Korean film Parasite, in that, there is kind of like, in Parasite, like the super poor people, like live at the bottom of this literal hill, and then the super rich people live, like all the way at the top of that hill, and then the parasites essentially, the whole situation of that movie, they start to infiltrate the lives of the, of the waspy, rich people. And I love, that sort of like a thing, there's even this film that I can't remember the damn name of, that was on Netflix, like The Platform or something like that, about like, these people at the very top are fed, and then like, there's like this huge buffet, and then by the time it gets to like the lower rungs of this sort of a thing, there's like no food left. It's a really weird movie. The ending was super weird as well, but there's a lot of stuff, that kind of has like a class structure thing. And even in this, just people in general that are, that live on the sphere, that live on the floating city or whatever, like Columbia from BioShock, this is a lot closer, I'd say, to BioShock in that, into BioShock Infinite, in that, like even the poor, the rich, the poor, whatever, all live, on this floating city, like in BioShock Infinite, it's Columbia, and they all live like on that floating city. And there's just different like areas, like that's more like, I guess if you will, like more like the hood, and then there's areas that are like a lot more richer, and you kind of start off in like the richer side of town, and then as you progress through BioShock Infinite, you end up in like the poor, sort of side of town. And that's kind of the same thing with Gachiakuta, where like there is the rich side of town, and then this dude lives on the poor side of town. But regardless, to the people on the ground, they are all spherites, and the people on the ground hate spherites because they dump all their trash onto the people on the ground, and it ruins their lives, it ruins the air that they breathe and whatnot. So there is, a sort of like a sort of green sort of a thing, like the pollution and whatnot, and trash creating pollution, and ruining ecosystems, and ruining people's lives and whatnot. And just by being from the sphere, even though up there he's considered poor or whatever, to the people on the ground he's still a spherite. So just based on that, they already hate him, because even though he was poor up there, their trash ends up on the ground. But I'm really excited to see what the hell's gonna happen with the series because I loved the first volume of it. Could not put it down. Read the whole damn thing, dude. Almost like one sitting. I think in like 2, 3 sittings, I read the whole thing just because like I refused to like just leave it halfway, dude. I had to finish it. I love the character. I want to see where it's gonna go. I like the designs of all the different people that are in it. There's something really imaginative. There's something really imaginative about it. This is gonna end up in my favorite things 2024 top 5. If something comes out that ends up dethroning it, I feel like that's the only way that it's not going to end up in there. But for the most part, I feel like this is going to end up in my 2024 top 5. So yeah, if you like sort of like dystopian sorts of stories, incredible artwork, kind of reminds me of like the mid 2000s art or whatever, I think you're going to enjoy Gachikuta as much as I did. All right, let's talk about something that I did not like so much. This is The White Mage Doesn't Want to Raise the Hero's Level. Alright, so let's talk about something a little bit different. This is something that I really didn't care for too much. This is The White Mage Doesn't Want to Raise the Hero's Level, and this is by somebody simply named Kirie. The lead character here is this dude right here, who I honestly thought was a girl. I had no idea he was a dude. This is probably because of the way that he's dressed. Like what he wears in the manga. Like if you've read this thing, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I honestly thought he was a girl, and it's a dude. His name is Irie, which I guess is like a play on the mangaka's name, Kirie. And this right here is a girl named Sheena. I did not like Sheena at all. I found Sheena to be extremely annoying. I got like halfway through this thing, and like I swear to you, like I almost quit reading it. Like I was like 20 pages into it, and I was like, I hate this story so much, dude. But at the same time, like I was reading it, like if you watched my last video, you'll have seen that I was like really sick. You know, like I felt awful. Even when I recorded that video, I was kind of coming out of, being sick and whatnot, but it's still really stuffy. And I was reading this, like pretty much when I finished reading Initial D, like as soon as I finished reading Initial D, because usually when I do my videos, like I will, as soon as I'm done reading one manga, I will jump right into the next one to get the next project that I'm doing going. And as soon as I finished Initial D, I jumped right into this. This is the first one that I actually read for this video, and I got like 10, yeah, like I said, 10, 15, 20 pages into it, and she just irked the living hell out of me, dude. Like I could not stand that girl. And it's probably unfair, I guess, I don't know, but I just could not stand her. Like, she irked the living hell out of me. And I think it's in part because I was sick. And when I was sick, like, my nose is really stuffy, and, like, I had, like, really nasty headaches just all the time. The whole, while that I was sick, I just, every day just had the most miserable headaches. And just felt awful. And just her being super annoying, because she is an annoying character. She's like a Nagatoro, like, don't toy with me, Miss Nagatoro. She's like one of those characters, like all she does all day is like pick on this dude. Even from like the cover art here, you can kind of see it, where like she's taking up the whole volume, like she's taking up the whole cover, and then he's kind of like taking up like this really tiny space of it, and she's like really, in his personal space. And that's literally the whole manga. Like, it made me claustrophobic, to be completely honest with you. The story kind of made me claustrophobic because of the fact that she's just, like, all over this dude. And it's meant to be, I guess, like, erotic or whatever. Like, I guess there's somebody out there that, found this entertaining, or they got something out of it, you know what I mean? Like, somebody somewhere got, like, something cultured out of this. I'm just not that dude. I couldn't stand how aggressive she is. I feel like her character is like way too aggressive, and he seems like such a like just docile, like sweet dude, and that's something that like in this story really turned me off. And like that she just would not respect this dude's personal space, and as a character I just found her to be really annoying and really pushy. And she, for the most part, doesn't raise his level. That's literally the whole story, is that like she refuses to raise his level. But it also feels like, how I want to say that it feels like kind of like a grooming situation, even though she's actually younger than him. I think she's like a year or two younger than he is. I think he's like 17 and she's like 15 or something. And yeah, there's like, even though like it's kind of like reverse grooming or something, I don't even know, but it feels like she's grooming him in a sense, and yeah, it felt really filthy. I just really felt like really dirty reading the story. Like, it just felt wrong, and I don't know if I'm gonna. I mean, I'm gonna finish it just to finish it, but whether or not I will continue it, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence, like about that. What's going on? It's me from the future. I just wanted to say really quickly that I've decided to drop this thing. I tried to read a little bit more of it after I posted that video. I tried to read like a few more pages, and I just kind of, you get that thing where you go, "No, I think I'm done." I got that, you know what, I think I'm done, feeling, and that's kind of it, dude. I don't see myself continuing it, and it's not that I'm like a prude, you know what I mean? Like, if you watch this channel long enough, you know that I pick up like cultured manga, and I did a video about lewd manga. So it's not that like I'm some sort of prude that can't handle seeing big boobs or something in a story. It's just that the story's not good. The character is just awful. I can't stand her, dude. I don't think she's a good character in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, I don't think I'm gonna continue this thing. So yeah, let's just finish out the rest of my thoughts on this story, and then we'll move on to other series that I actually enjoyed. It does get a little bit less, I guess, claustrophobic near the middle where I'm at. There's another character that's introduced that's into like bondage or whatever, and that part is just kind of weird. Just like completely came out of left field. There is definitely, if you're a fan of like fan service and whatnot, there's definitely quite a bit of fan service, and it takes place pretty early on. I'm not saying don't read this story, you know what I mean? I'm not telling anybody, not to read a thing. I'm sure there's people out there that like this, that there's a target audience for this. I just don't think that I'm that target audience. And I'm not telling people not to read it, you know what I mean? I don't want anybody to feel like I'm trying to preach or trying to stand on like a soapbox and say that this is wrong or that, this or that. I mean, to each their own. This isn't a channel where like I'm going to sit here and try to preach to anybody and tell you that you have to stay away from this or stay away from that or whatever. You're all your own people. You're all your own people. You can do whatever you want with your time and your reading. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, I didn't even write a script for this because I didn't see any reason to do so. I didn't see personally any saving grace for this story. I liked him, I guess. I liked him as a character. I feel bad for him because he just seems like a really sweet dude, and I feel like he ended up with like possibly the worst, the worst mage who like pretty much like going back to like the comment I made about grooming. Like, she refuses to let him level, and then like basically lords it over him. Like, she lords that she is the provider over him. She just constantly like eggs on him, and just like it's like, oh, I have to take care of both of us because you can't do anything. And that really bothered me. Like, that really made me mad. And I think it made me mad because I was sick when I was reading it, and like it just really got under my skin. Because I don't like that. I don't like people dogging on other people. I can't stand that. Like, oh, I'm the provider, I'm gonna take care of you, that sort of thing. Like, that just irritates the living hell out of me. I don't like when people try to like shove things that they've done for you in your face. Like, that right there just irks the living hell out of me, dude. And that's what she made me feel. But later on, like, you start to see like a little bit more of a vulnerable side from her, which kind of softens that, super aggressive thing that she had. You start to see a little bit more of a vulnerability to her character. So, like I said, I'm still like, I'm only halfway through it. I mean, over here to there, something could happen that'll completely change my opinion on the series. It's happened before. Like Oshinoko, going to Oshinoko, I kind of hated that story at the beginning, and then I ended up liking it a lot by the end of it. Blade of the Moon Princess, I think is what that story's called. Did not like it at all until that story got to Earth. Once it got to Earth, that's when I started to like it. So, I mean, even though like I really did not like the first part of this, there's still that possibility that maybe in the second half it'll win me over. But I have no idea, dude. Given like the strong feelings that I had, given the strong feelings that I had about the beginning of it, I really don't see it happening. It definitely feels like some sort of wish fulfillment on the creator's part, given that this creator basically like self-inserts by naming this character Irie. So I don't know, dude. If you read this and you enjoyed it, I'd love to know what you liked about this series. If you didn't like it, I'd also like to know what you thought. Or if you never want to touch it, it's all good. I'm here to just like pick up different things and give an opinion about them. But I'm never here to dog on creators. I never want to do that. I never want to dog on any creator. You know what I mean? Like I've said before, there's definitely an audience for this thing. But as of right now, I don't think that I am that audience. I picked it up to read it for this video, and that's what I did. I read it for the video. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. Alright, so now one that I actually really did like. This is In the Name of the Mermaid Princess, and this is the story for this manga is written by Yoshino Fumikawa, and the art is by Miya Dashiro. This is so much. This was, I don't know if I want to say it was a lot of fun, because parts of it were kind of miserable. Parts of the story are kind of miserable. Like, it reminds me of like a Lifetime movie, you know, where like this girl or woman or whatever is just put through hell. You know, she's put through the absolute worst, and she's put through the worst by men. You know, and it's like men are horrible monsters, and it seems like the only thing that they are there for is to, you know, be mean to the women until the women rise up. You know, and essentially stand their ground, and that's kind of what it made me think of. But I'm not trying to dog on this series because I actually really liked it. Like, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I love the artwork. I love the lead character. Mio is her name, who is the mermaid princess girl. She's a ton of fun. I love her character. I think she's really sweet. She's a really sweet character. Kind of reminded me of the series that I read recently for another video. I think I read it for my last currently reading video, or my Hey Have You Read? I don't even remember what I read that series for anymore. But yeah, I read a series called Nina the Starry Bride, and this is what it kind of made me think of. I feel like Nina is a little bit more feisty, though. I feel like she's like a lot more feisty because she was like a street rat or whatever. But this girl just pretty much is like really sweet. She, for the most part, doesn't fight back until like, I don't say like the middle of the manga. It's like I'm like halfway through it. I stopped reading it about the point where like she, you know, like bares her fangs. You know, she finally fights back after pretty much, you know, being told you can't do this, you can't do that her whole life. And she's just like, yes, okay, you know, like I'm going to be docile. I'm not going to fight back. And then towards the middle of it, she finally like bares her teeth and she's like, no, we're going to, she's like, she squares up. She's like, no, we're going to fight about this. I'm not going to let you pretty much like, you know, tell me, you know, what I can and can't do. So, pretty much, there is this world in this series, and it's kind of like a fantasy series, you know, where there's like kingdoms and whatnot, and she's a princess, and in this universe, people are born with, I guess, like powers or whatever. But if you're born with powers, you're also born deformed. You have like deformities or whatever. In her case, she is a mermaid, or you know, like a part of mer folk. She is basically an abomination in this world. If you are born, you know, like I said, you know, with powers, if you have powers, that means you are deformed in some way or another. Like there's fox kids, there's these twins that are foxes, and there's different beings. You know, there's a kid who has like half a face that's like one color, and then the other half of his face is like just normal or whatever. Kind of like that one dude from My Hero Academia, whose name I don't know off the top of my head, but it kind of reminded me of him. And pretty much, if you are born odd or different or whatever in this kingdom of, I don't even remember what the hell the title is. I'll just put it right here. I'll put the title of the kingdom right here. If you're born in that kingdom, if you're born in that kingdom and you are deformed, you are pretty much immediately kicked out of the kingdom to another country. And since she is a princess and royalty, she's not kicked out of the country because she is royalty. But what she is hidden from the world because her father, the king, is pretty much like ashamed of how she was born. And because of the fact that he's ashamed of how she was born, he kicks her mother out of the country, but keeps her in the country and spends however many years of her life. I think she's like 15. She's going to be 16. And like by her 16th birthday, she's going to be married off to this dude from another country named Aquatia or something like that. I forgot what it was called. I'll put the name of it. I'll put the name of that other country right here. But she's gonna be married off, and she has to take like an injection or gets a pill, I forgot what it is, that turns her, for lack of a better word, normal, for half a day or whatever. And she, for like that half a day, doesn't have, the flipper that she has here. She has legs, and they're trying to make it permanent. They're trying to make her permanently just a regular average girl, not, not this mermaid girl. And about the time that, she's going to be, I guess, moving to this other country once they are able to cure what she has, she meets this dude who is going to, teach her the customs of this other country and whatnot. And in meeting him, like he's like, I guess, rebel. He's like the rebel, like breaking all the rules in this country that she lives in, and starts to kind of, make her stand up for herself, and starts to show her, ways in which she can, fight back against the power. She can fight back against her father and whatnot, like kind of rebel, against the awful nature of this country in which she lives. One thing I will say about her dad is that her dad is a scumbag. I hated that dude. Like that to me, that's like really effective, writing, where a story can make you like despise a person, and it was the same deal with Nina the Starry Bride. I really hated the queen in Nina the Starry Bride. Like, she was awful. And in this story, instead of it being the queen, it's Mio's dad, who's just an absolute jerk. And like that dude is like he's like, father of the year over here. Like he's over here like Gendo Ikari, just a horrible dude. At one point he's like screaming at her that she must be human and whatnot, and it's about the time where like she just finally snaps, and like says that she wants to remain, a princess. And that's only halfway through it, so I'm not spoiling the end. So it's only like halfway through it, so I'm not spoiling, the end of the manga or anything, because I haven't gotten that far. But I like that, she does, pretty early on begin to stand up for herself, and she's like, no, this is who I am, this is who I'm going to be. And there's definitely, I think it's a good story that, will resonate with certain people that are maybe in certain situations where they are, for the most part, being made to follow a certain rule set that they don't want to follow, but it's kind of like, like you're under your parents' roof, that sort of a thing. You're under their roof, so you're going to do what they say until you can get out from under the roof, and then you can kind of, do whatever you want, be your own person. Kind of get that, sort of a feeling from it. But I do really like the artwork. I like her a lot. She's super sweet. She's like a really sweet girl, and it's really unfortunate, what's done to her. Parts of it made me want to shed a tear. Because she's so sweet, dude, and like you see her as like a little baby, and she looks so sweet and innocent. And then later on, you see her a little bit older as like a young girl or whatever, like 6, 7 or whatever, and she wants to drink like salt water, but her dad does not let her drink salt water because she must be a normal girl, and normal girls drink fresh water. And you can see like a tear streaming down her cheek, and it broke my heart, dude. It broke my damn heart, bro. I was like, man, screw this guy. Yo, like, it broke my heart, dude. And I was like, yo, screw this guy, man. Her dad is such a jerk, bro. It just irked the living hell out of me. And that's great storytelling to me, or at least just like really well done, really effective. In that it makes you hate a character, and like I could not stand her dad. Every time he showed up, I was like, get the hell out of here, bro. I was like, get the hell out of here. Nobody needs you here. You're not welcome. But I like her. I like the dude who is her tutor. There's more going on with him. I think I know what's going on with him. I feel like it kind of got explained, but I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to ruin your experience with this thing, but I feel like it's pretty obvious who that dude is. Reminds me of things, obviously, like Little Mermaid. Just because I am an oddball, I, for whatever reason, thought of The Lighthouse. If you've ever seen the film The Lighthouse, there is a mermaid in that movie, and it's really weird. The scene with the mermaid, I'm not going to go too into it, but it kind of pans down, and you see a part of the mermaid that you're just kind of like, why? You're just like, why did you show this? And it's so random, dude, but it made me just, for whatever reason, because I just equate certain things to the most, far out of field, things that I don't know how anybody else but me could make those connections. But yeah, I thought of The Lighthouse and also thought of one of my favorite mangaka ever, Datsuki Fujimoto, has a series called Mermaid Rhapsody. Not a series, a one shot or whatever, called Mermaid Rhapsody, which was in his one collection. I think 17 through 21, I think is what that collection was called. Or no, 19 through 22 or whatever. I think that's what it was, 19 through 22. I'm not sure. I'll put the title of it, but it's the second one that he did of stories that he wrote, when he was younger. 22 through 26. That's what it was, not 19 through 22. 22 through 26. Yeah, in that he had a story called Mermaid Rhapsody, and for whatever reason, it kind of made me think of that as well. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this thing. I want to finish it to see what happens. I'm probably going to end up picking up the next volume of this thing. I have no idea when I'm going to read the second volume of it, because I usually read like volume ones and then I'm like right on to the next thing, because I'm trying to read for videos and whatnot. But I am trying to get a little bit better about, continuing series, reading volume 2s and 3s and 4s and whatnot. But sometimes it's kind of hard because I'm like so like on the let's get to the next thing so I can get the next video out. But if you like shoujo stories, man, if you like, sort of cute stories, if you want to see a cute girl suffer for like the first part of a volume and then kind of like grow a spine and, stand up for herself by like the second half of it, I think you're going to like In the Name of the Mermaid Princess. I love the artwork. I feel like shoujo series just have such beautiful artwork. Call the Name of the Night had amazing artwork. This story has great artwork. Sakura Saku also has great artwork. I don't know if Nina the Starry Bride is shoujo or not, but that has really beautiful artwork as well. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to finishing this one and jumping into volume 2 at some point. So if you read this, I'd love to know your thoughts. Alright, so next up we have Steel of the Celestial Shadow. This is written and drawn by Daruma Matsuura. I had a lot of fun with this one, I think. Alright, so this series is a bit of a slow burn. I am halfway through it. There's the bookmark. Yeah, this is a bit of a slow burn. There's supposed to be, I guess, like some sort of ethereal, I guess, like supernatural, sort of a thing, going on, with this manga. Where I'm at right now, it hasn't really gotten to that point yet. I don't know if I'm gonna continue it. I guess we'll see. Once I finish it, where I stand on that. I mean, I've enjoyed it. It feels like it's trying to be a romance manga more than it is like a supernatural manga, because the supernatural part of it hasn't really happened yet, even though like it seems to be, a point of it. Even right here, she looks like kind of ethereal. This woman who comes into that dude's life right there, who, like, as you can see on the cover, kind of looks like he's drowning. So pretty much our lead into this story is a dude named Ryudo, who is supposed to be like a samurai, but he's a terrible samurai in that anytime he touches like metal or anything like that, it bends out of shape. It's kind of like a reverse Magneto, I guess, if you will, where like he can't come into contact with certain metals or whatever because they bend. Like as soon as he touches them, they bend or they recoil from him. I think that there is going to be, a reason explained why, why this happens to him. I guess, like, I don't know, at some point there's going to be, an explanation as to why, it's a thing. And it's definitely kind of odd, that he can't, wield a sword. He tries to get different jobs, to be able to support himself, to sustain himself. And it doesn't ever work out because, like, whenever he goes to, I don't know if it's like the magistrate office or wherever, whenever he goes there to try to get a job, they refuse to give him anything other than, like samurai work. And he can't wield a sword. He has like a wooden sword that he wields because it's the only thing that he can carry. And at one point he gets kind of like tired of this lot, because he was a part of a house and the house is basically like fallen into disarray, and it's just him and a manservant that's been with the family, I think, since like his father's age or whatever, and it's just the two of them. He's like middle-aged at this point in the story, everything he's ever had, of value is gone. I think like within like the first 10 pages of the story, he's selling off his mom's kimono or whatever to get something for it, and he barely gets like pennies for the thing. Like what he gets isn't anything. They don't have any food left. They got like a cup of rice and that's it between two dudes. So it's like really sad, like the situation that he's in. And he tries to get these dudes to, I guess, like kill him or whatever, and they draw their swords on him. And when they draw their swords and they try to cut him, down, the swords bend, out of shape, because anytime like any metal touches his skin or it touches his hands or whatever, they bend. It's really weird, but I think it's cool. It's like it's introducing a bit of that, otherworldly, I guess, part of the story, because it really hasn't done anything otherworldly other than that. And since that doesn't work, I think at one point he like tries to drown himself, or he does almost drown, and he's just like, what, take me. It's just like, take me, dude. I'm done. I'm ready to go. Like, my life is a mess. And he ends up being saved by this woman right here, who really reminds me of, I don't know if you've all seen the samurai film Lady Snowblood, but she really reminds me of the character from Lady Snowblood. Only in that woman is like 100% revenge. It's like really, if you've ever watched Kill Bill, it's pretty much like the film that inspired Kill Bill. Like if you watch that and then watch Kill Bill, you'll see there's like so many shots in Kill Bill that are like almost frame for frame shots from Lady Snowblood. And that is such an incredible film. I haven't seen the follow-up to Lady Snowblood, but I did love Lady Snowblood. I thought it was just such a wild film, and I want to get my hands on it. There's a Criterion edition of Lady Snowblood, and then of the follow-up to it, because it's I guess 2 films were made in that series. And she kind of reminds me. She kind of looks like the character from that. And one of the emphasis, there's like a pretty big emphasis in this manga on her eyes. And you'll even see it here on this this cover, where like her eyes, take up a pretty big chunk of the cover, and you'll see it in the series, where like her eyes are super expressive, and that's something that I like. That's one thing that I really did like about this series, is how expressive her eyes are, and how much she can convey with them. And I like that in stories. I like that in characters and actors or whatever, where like their eyes can convey so much. I feel like, in my opinion, that is a good actor, where like you can convey so much with just your eyes. Especially like if you're in a situation where like that's, all you have for your character is to convey whatever situation you're in through that, or even just using that as a big part of the thing that you're doing, to convince the audience, that you're feeling the strong emotion or whatever. And her eyes are, like a huge focal point, and I think that's really cool. And the way that they're drawn, the way that she is drawn, she's really sweet, she's really kind, and so far we really don't know why she wants to be with him, because she saves him from drowning at one point, and then she pretty much, as a result of saving him from drowning, wants to marry him. She saves him, and then she wants to marry him. And he's like, please get away from me. I don't want anything to do with you, because he's like miserable and he just wants to be left alone. And she's like all about it. She wants to be with him, and they get married or whatever. And he tries to do everything in his power to try to push her away. At one point, they play this game called Go, which I've never heard of, but it's a Japanese game. Kind of reminds me of Hunter x Hunter, like towards the end of Hunter x Hunter, the anime, with Meruem and Komogi, I think is what her name was. Where they're playing shogi. I think it was shogi that they were playing. I can't remember, but kind of reminded me of that when they started playing the game. And yeah, pretty much, man. If you watched Hunter x Hunter and that scene, yeah, that whole final arc, with Komogi and with Meruem, dude, so just, oh my god. Even just thinking about it. But yeah, that's what they kind of remind me of. Kind of hope it doesn't go that route. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where like it's really like a slow burn, and it's just pretty much like him being miserable, because he's poor, and then she comes into the fold and kind of like, annoys him even further, because like she won't go away. So yeah, it kind of goes from there. They end up at some festival at some point. That's kind of where like I stopped, where like they end up at the festival, because I felt like I'd had enough, at that point to, kind of give you my thoughts and opinions about the series. It's really well drawn. It is really well drawn. I like the way that the characters are kind of illustrated and whatnot. Interested in seeing, how it's going to play out to the point where, we got to the end of this volume and see if it does, go into this, because it's promised, I guess, that it's going to get sort of a thrill and we're going to see like this ghost world type of situation, I guess. I don't know, how far that's going to go. But given that I do like the characters, I'm invested enough that I want to at least finish this first volume, and then, once I do, we'll see, how far I go into it from there, whether or not, I'm going to pick up volume 2 or not, because I haven't picked up volume 2 yet, because I don't want to until I read this volume and see how I feel about it, by the end of the series. But if you've read this thing and you enjoyed it or you didn't like it, whatever, I'd like to know your opinions. And same with all the other stuff that I've talked about so far. Please let me know in the comments what you think about any of the series that I've talked about so far. Alright, so I saved this one for last because I think this was probably, this is definitely my second favorite after Gachiakuta. Gachiakuta, I'd say, was probably my favorite, and then this is my second favorite. There's just something about this series that really pulled me in. Our lead in this is a dude whose name I think is... the lead in this is a dude named Shiozawa, who is like a middle-aged dude. But I think he's like later middle-aged. He's like in his 50s, if I'm not mistaken. And he's got a pet, like, bird or whatever, and he talks to the bird, and the bird talks back to him. And, like, talks back to him like a normal person would. So, pretty much, Shiozawa in this series was an editor for manga, and I kind of like that entry point, where, like, he's not a mangaka, he is an editor, and this is written and drawn by Taiyo Matsumoto, who is a pretty legendary creator. He's done series like Number 5, and he also did Tech on Kincrete, so he's a pretty prolific creator, and I feel like I've connected. This is the first one of his series that I've read, even though I've had Tech on Kincrete on my shelf for a while, and I've also had Number 5 on my shelf for a while. But I'm kind of glad that I started with this because I really connected with this series. Yeah, this is like being a creative person in some way or another, and we follow a bunch of like creative people. We follow this dude who is a mangaka, who was the mangaka that Shiozawa edited for, and they'd worked together for a long time, and near the end of his retirement, he just kind of like doesn't want to do it anymore, doesn't want to deal with, editing manga, wants to just, at one point he just starts to like sell all of his manga because he can't, he just doesn't want to deal with it anymore, and then after like he has it all appraised or whatever to sell, he decides to change his mind. He's like, no, I'm not going to sell it after all, I'm sorry. But he had like a ton of manga that he was gonna get rid of. And that's something that like I kind of relate to as well. I don't know if you all, relate to it, where like you kind of get to this point where you start to think like, damn, dude, I got a lot of this. Like I have a lot of manga. And this happens to me where I'm like, dude, I got a lot of manga. Like, what the hell am I going to do with all of this manga? Like, there's so much of it. And I start to like freak out and whatnot. And I feel like that's the same thing with this character. And I feel like it's something that's relatable. Like when you are a collector and you collect a lot of a certain thing, I feel like there comes a time, and I don't know if this is every collector or just some people like myself and like the lead in this story and other people, but comes a time where you start to be like, why the hell do I have so much of this? And I feel like that's a thing that he kind of, feels. It's like, why the hell do I have so much of this? Pretty much there's like a point in people's lives where you kind of like look at what you've created and look at what you've accomplished and whatnot, and you start to wonder if it really ever made you happy, if it's what you wanted out of life, and you start to think that maybe that wasn't my calling after all. Maybe I should go for something else. Maybe there's something else out there that is going to bring me happiness, and maybe if I retire from this one thing, I'll be able to find my true happiness in something else. And we don't only follow Shiozawa, we also follow like 3 other characters, and like I said, we follow a mangaka that he was the editor for, And the dude who used to be editor for is a guy named Mr. Chosaku, who I guess is like who I guess is like like a known talent. He's been around for a long time, but his newer mangas of late don't really carry the same, I guess, emotion or punch or whatever that his series is used to carry. When he first started creating manga or whatever, it's lost a lot of like the luster that they had. And it feels like now he's just writing for the hell of writing, and this is definitely like manga snobs. I don't know how else to describe it, but the characters in this feel like manga snobs. Like it reminds me of like High Fidelity. If you've ever seen the film High Fidelity, where they're like all just like record snobs. The created this the characters in the series just feel like snobs, and for whatever reason, like I just related to it so much. I loved it. Like I have a lot of books too, not just manga. Like I've read a lot of books, and I feel like I am in a sense kind of like a book snob, where like I've read like what I consider to be like good books and whatnot, and like I don't read like trash books. So I am in a sense like a snob, and we follow him, Chosaku, and then we also follow a dude named Aoki who's like an oddball, but he's like an oddball. Like he gets strong and starts acting weird. He lives with a bunch of cats. Like he's got a bunch of cats, and he's like when he gets drunk, he starts taking off his clothes. He's like an eccentric. He's writing a new manga, and he wants Shiozawa to look over the manga, even though he's retired, because he wants his input. And then Chosaku also, I think, kind of wants his input on some things. And then there's another character who is a woman in the series, and her name is Hayashi, and she is Aoki's current editor. And kind of, it turns out that Shiozawa had appointed her before he quit to be, Aoki's editor, because he sees a similarity, I guess, between those two people, even though Aoki and Hayashi like cannot stand each other. Like they're just like butting heads, and it's really funny, dude. I don't know. There's something really contemplative about this manga, and I like those sorts of things. I'm a big fan of stories that kind of, reflect inward, and this feels like it's that story. Like My Dinner with Andre. I talk about that movie all the damn time, dude. But my Dinner with Andre, the scene where this dude's talking about, like how he used to enjoy watching film, and now he doesn't really get enjoyment, or enjoying books. I forgot what it was, but he used to get enjoyment out of a thing, and like he really doesn't get enjoyment out of it anymore. Like he doesn't feel anything towards it anymore. And that's kind of what it made me think of, and like High Fidelity made me think of that as well. It made me think of like this really old film from the 90s named Trees Lounge, which was directed by Steve Buscemi. It also stars Steve Buscemi. It stars Chloe Sevigny. Sevigny, I have no idea how to pronounce her last name. There's a bunch of characters in it as well that are like, a part of that era. And there's like, I guess there was like a lot of like improv or whatever done on that film, and I really liked that movie a lot. Like I just got the DVD just because I had to own it. It's one of those films like I watched a long time ago, and it really made an impression on me because all the characters are like, they kind of hang out around this bar or whatever, and it just feels like such a mood. Like the film is like a total mood, and a great capture of like the like early 2000, like the early 90s or whatever. Like that kind of whole aesthetic. And I'm a big fan of like stories like that were like really contemplative, and you meet the characters and you kind of like spend time with them as they just go about their daily lives. There is no, saving the world from, whatever alien invasion. There is no hijacker. There is no threat. It's literally just people living their ordinary lives, kind of like a slice of life type of thing. And that's kind of what this is in a sense too. It's kind of like a slice of life, I guess, if you will. But it's like a slice of life for middle-aged people. Like it's kind of like, where does the road go from here? It's like I kind of did the thing that I wanted to do, and now that I'm ready to just kind of move on to the next thing. How are the lives of the people around me who, I was a beacon for? How are their lives going to be now? How are their lives going to be impacted now that I'm no longer, doing the thing? Because that's literally what happens within the story. Like by Shiozawa pretty much quitting being an editor, the lives of the people around him are all altered, and now they have to step into different roles, and they kind of start to become introspective themselves and start to see, like the way that they were and the way that they have to be now, with new situations and new editors or whatever, and like the butting of the heads, between Aoki and Hayashi, because they really weren't going to be working together in the initial run of things, but because this dude threw a wrench into the works, they end up being forced to work together. I'm only halfway through it, but I'm really looking forward to finishing this one because I connected with it so much as a creative person. Like I've published books and whatnot, and I make YouTube videos, and I do like different creative things. And I always wondered, like, what would I do if I wasn't doing these things? And would I just like sit around and watch TV all day? Could I just sit around and watch TV all day? Because I'm not really that person. Like I can't stand still. I can't sit still. Even when I make these videos, I'm always touching my hair. And that's just because like I have like that thing, like I have ADHD. So my hands are always moving. I have to always be doing something to kind of like keep myself entertained. And like I feel like as creative people, you start to see things in a different light than maybe other people that aren't creative would see things. And I feel like this is a manga that really explores, what it is getting older and, just starting to see the world through a new lens, through a new perspective or whatever. So yeah, if you want to see something, if you want to read something that is really contemplative, because if you want to read like hype manga, like action, adventure, people getting killed or whatever, like violence, gritty, whatever, this is not going to be for you. You're not going to have a good time with this story. I feel like I had a good time with it because I am getting older, like I'm in my mid-30s, and I've like wound down a lot from when I was younger, from when I was like way younger. Because I used to go out a lot when I was a lot younger. I used to go to bars. I used to go to parties or whatever. I used to go to clubs. And now, like, I'm in my mid-30s. I've, like, wound down a lot. I like to just sit at home and watch a TV show or play video games or read manga for these videos. But, like I said, I've wound down a lot. And I feel like I can relate, to the contemplative nature of this story. So if you're a fan of something like this as well, I think that you're going to have a great time with Tokyo These Days. So we've made it to the end of the video. This got extremely long. I don't know why. I don't know why my videos are so long, dude. Like I just like I'm one of those people like I don't know how to like shut up. So let's do this. I like to do these at the end of these. Like I like to do this at the end of these. Like I'll do a rundown of everything that I talked about. But we got Gachi Akuta. So if you want to read a series about a dude who is like a fan of trash, and he ends up being expelled from the world in which he lives, basically sentenced to die, but he doesn't die, and goes to, I guess, the ground world, and realizes that he is a giver, and he's able to essentially use like this power system to beat other opponents or whatever. I think you're gonna have a good time with Gachi Akuta. The White Mage doesn't want to raise the hero's level. If you are a fan of, I guess, like cultured manga, and if you're a fan of like annoying characters, kind of like a Nagatoro or whatever, I think you may like this story. Is kind of like a fantasy sort of a setting, even though there's really no fantasy stuff going on like at all. It's like really limited. It's more like a fan service sort of a manga than anything else. And then we got In the Name of the Mermaid Princess. If you like shoujo manga with like really well-drawn characters and a story about a girl that is pretty much like oppressed and kind of ends up coming into her own and fighting back against the oppression, I think you will like In the Name of the Mermaid Princess. If you want a slow burn, I think you're going to like Steel of the Celestial Shadows. I'm like halfway through it and it's still been pretty slow, but it's not a bad story. It's just kind of like a builder. I feel like it might, maybe towards the end, it's where like things are going to start to happen. I think it's definitely going to be one of those sorts of stories. Or if you want something a little more contemplative, I feel like you're going to like Tokyo These Days as much as I did. I loved it. I can't wait to finish it. And yeah, those are my picks. I picked up every one of these for this video. I wanted to read these all for this video, so whatever your opinions are on any of these, if you've read any of these, if you want to read any of these, I'd love to know your thoughts. That's all I got for you. If you want to support me in any way, shape, or form, you can do so by joining my Patreon. I want to do a lot more with the thing. I'm gonna start trying to do a lot more like behind the scenes stuff and whatnot for the Patreon. It's $2 a month. And then also, you can drop a super thanks under this video if you want to. If you don't want to, it's all good. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you're doing well. I hope everyone you love is doing well. Until next time we meet, please take care of yourselves.
Yo, it's himself, the Shadowrunners clique, aka Sleep All Out. Take you on a mental and live for one day, y'all. Sheets, y'all. Guns, y'all. Yo, who got the guns? You got the coke. Hustling them through like big punch cholesterol before he croak. Rest in peace, but I bless in peace and live to one day lay in shoots. Rap over beats and tell wild stories, the mythology mystery. Choke on your own misery. Fuck them, we're the wild bunch. Yo, I asked him if this bike could punch. This shit made me lose my lunch. Bro grabbed the rocket, I said chill before he cocked it.